Can you cover the Nicki Minaj Gavin Newsom beef? There's a Nicki Minaj Gavin Newsom beef. Are the Barbs really in it still? Because I feel like at the peak of the peak of the Barbs, I mean that was like a decade ago at this point. They were a force to be reckoned with. But it's gotta be difficult if you're like, because Barbs are mostly gay, right? Barbs are supposed to be like, as far as I understand, like there are a lot of Barbs who are gay, they're black, they're brown, and Nicki Minaj is like MAGA pivot. I just don't know how many of the Barbs are going to also, I mean, I guess if they were sticking by her with all of the affiliations that she had up until this point, they'll probably stick through the MAGA stuff too. But I don't know. Once you lose your Brazilian fans, it's over. I'm writing for Nicki. I'm sorry. That's honestly insane. But congratulations, I think. I mean, it's basically the equivalent of just admitting that you're in a cult or something. Like at that point, congratulations. I don't know. That's how Stan Twitter works, man. They don't turn. They do though. They do. Stan Twitter does turn sometimes. I think when it gets to a certain point, I think Nicki Minaj might have passed that point, but maybe not. Like her pivot into MAGA, she very quickly became like a hardliner. I just want to say I was there early. I was there early when I criticized Nicki Minaj during COVID and even ratioed her, and then the Barbs never let me live that down. You know, I'm still here. My opinions haven't changed. I'll still ride for you, Barbs. Like not on the basis of being a Barb, but I'll still ride for your, you know, rights and stuff, your liberties, which you might not care as much about, I guess, but I'm still here. I originally ratioed Nicki Minaj in like 2020 or 2021. I can't recall when she was talking about her cousin's balls or something. And then a tweet that I was supposed to reply to Nicki Minaj with, that I didn't even end up replying to Nicki Minaj with, that I left in the drafts about Tucker Carlson, was made into this major issue. Austin Ox made a whole video about it. It was pretty good. Don't let the Barb see the cane, Unc. It's all good. Listen, for all of the controversies throughout the many, many years that I have fought for things that I believe in, you know, I've just, yeah, here it is. I said, they want you to get vaccinated for the Met. If I get vaccinated, it won't be for the Met. It'll be once I feel I've done enough research. I'm working on that now. In the meantime, my loves, be safe. Wear the mask with 2 strings that grips your head and face, not that loose one. I said the world awaits your wonderful contribution to the scientific community. That really activated the Bars. That really pissed them off. I mean, I don't know. I don't really care if you like still listen to Nicki Minaj. I don't have any issue with that. I don't give a fuck about that at all. For the record, I'm not like, oh my God, boycott Nicki Minaj. I don't really give a shit. That's not what I'm saying at all. Don't misunderstand me. I feel like being a stan is a little bit different though, because like being a stan is being ride or die, and defending shit that's like. Being a stan is defending the politics, the individual politics of the person, not just like consuming their music or their art or something. Like that's definitely a little crazy in my opinion. Or like even defending their like personal choices and things of that nature, like the way, like what they're doing. As a Barb, I believe that she's playing a long game for something that we don't know about yet. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes regarding Jay-Z and Desiree, the CEO of Rock Nation. That's why this whole thing started. They owe her more than $4 million. Nicki's very smart and crazy. She knows what's going on and who Trump is and what he stands for. It's not about Trump or her supporting MAGA. No, I think it is. I mean, you're not wrong about like leaning into the Trump direction as like as a grift or whatever. Like, I don't think that aspect of it is incorrect. I think that analysis is true. She is like performatively leaning into Trump, but I don't think it's for some higher priority, some like grand design beyond like she just probably wants the Trump administration to defend her loved ones eventually. She sees which way the winds are blowing in a way that is not dissimilar to how like big corporations make this right-wing pivot. She's doing the same thing, I think, you know? A lot of people do this. A lot of people pivot to the right when they get into trouble. That's all this is. Yeah, people find God, you know? The unique predicament for someone like Nicki Minaj, however, is that her fandom is mostly comprised of, you know, queer people, who are black and brown. And that's why it's like shocking to see people still try to deal with this very clear MAGA pivot, like pro MAGA pivot. Like with T Swift, I get it. You know what I mean? Because like T Swift, universal fandom, but like a lot of white women, right? And we know white women voting patterns, right? That if T Swift made a right wing pivot in terms of like her fandom, I think I could totally see a lot of people also going with that pivot, because at the very least they can just like be quote unquote oblivious to the impact of reactionary politics, right? And that's why white women still majority vote for Donald Trump. Not to say like all white women who follow Taylor Swift have this kind of politics, because obviously 48% of white women don't vote for Donald Trump, right? And vote against Donald Trump. But do you see what I mean? As far as like numbers that are like numbers that would be at least privileged enough not to care about this kind of pivot, or this kind of politics, would be more so on the like for the T Swift pivot. I could totally see that audience, as opposed to like Nicki Minaj's audience, because a lot of us grew up with her and she was an icon for a lot of queer black people. I moved on from Nicki, but it did take a lot of time for me to go. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like I get the cultural impact that Nicki Minaj had for such a long period of time. I just don't understand how there's still people out there that are riding, maybe not to the same degree, but like riding for her politics, her new politics. That's crazy. This person says, oh, once you lose the Brazilian fans, it's over. I know you know about Swifties for Kamala Law. Also, you are not a fandom person. I get it, because I'm not either. Yeah, I've never been a big fandom person. What does she do? Oh no, she's just been Nicki Minaj has been like actively doing like pro MAGA stuff, and I guess now she's going after Gavin Newsom, which, you know, I'm not like the biggest fan of Gavin Newsom either, but I certainly think Gavin Newsom's politics are at least like I would say Gavin Newsom's politics are closer to mine than Nicki Minaj's, at least the way Nicki Minaj is presenting herself nowadays, you know? Like I have my disagreements and my significant disagreements with someone like Gavin Newsom, but, you know, while they're both far away from the way I see the world, both Nicki Minaj and Gavin Newsom, at least Gavin Newsom is like marginally closer. I don't know. They were fighting because she was talking negatively about trans kids. Yeah. But that's just stan culture and politics actually mix so weirdly, because like a lot of stans, at least in my experience, from what I remember, a lot of stans basically fucking have like their demonstration of politics is very woke, like hyper woke, rad lib, right? Having said that, however, they just kind of use it as a talking point rather than like having any sort of firm commitment to a political ideology. So it always leads to this interesting phenomena where there'll be like, I saw some people basically saying like, well, Gavin Newsom's a Zionist. Like there were barbs that were like calling out Gavin Newsom's like pro-Israel stance, which thank you for doing that. I agree. Right. But also at the same time, they're like defending Nicki Minaj, defending Donald Trump. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's like it's very compartmentalized, if that makes sense.